Welcome to the Weather Gurus live podcast. Welcome to the Weather Gurus live podcast for July 5th, 2024. We're currently talking about Tropical Storm Beryl now as it begins its reemergence into the Gulf of Mexico here just as of the last 2 hours. Tropical Storm Beryl has been downgraded to a tropical storm with winds currently pressing at 65 miles an hour as of the latest 4 p.m. Central Daylight, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard advisory. Its movement is still west-northwest at 15 miles an hour, just over 24 knots, kilometers an hour. Winds are at 65 miles an hour, and it will continue a slight weakening process before all of it is reemerged into the Gulf of Mexico. As you can see the satellite image here, it has reemerged partially into the Gulf of Mexico, and this system will continue to pull northwestward right now through the evening hours. Now, some notable changes here is that hurricane watches have been extended along the Texas coast, as it's looking more and more likely that this system is going to have a rendezvous with some part of Texas. South Texas is not out of the woods, and Middle Texas is not out of the woods, and the Houston area is starting to become more and more concerned with this storm as it tracks northwest and then north and possibly turn northeast for its final landfall in between Texas and Louisiana, I believe. But right now, it is looking forward. Tropical Storm Beryl is looking to re-intensify sometime tomorrow morning as it fully emerges off the Yucatan Peninsula. And so that's what we're looking at here. As you can see on the satellite, Tropical Storm Beryl did lose a lot of its punch as it made landfall over the Yucatan Peninsula this morning, and it traversed the Yucatan Peninsula and came somewhere east of Merida, Mexico here, and now it's emerging out in this little island here in the Gulf of Mexico here. Now, you can see lots of the convection has died down. You see the cloud tops have warmed significantly, as denoted by the orange and yellow coloring there, and it's lost its core. Its core, it was before it had a nice defined eye and everything was good, but it's lost its core foundation here. So Tropical Storm Beryl is going to forecast to re-strengthen probably sometime starting tomorrow morning. It is almost off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. Winds at 65 miles an hour. Pressure is continuing to rise up to about 980 millibars here, and this location would bring it close to the northeast Texas coast. Right now, we're looking at that there is hurricane warnings, hurricane watches in effect for Texas, and right now we're also looking at the core of Beryl losing strength for the next few hours. And so right now the winds have decreased to 65 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, and tropical storms force winds only extend out 105 miles from the center. Pressure is up to 989. Now, after tomorrow, Saturday afternoon, is when that intensification process should start for Tropical Storm Beryl. It's not clear whether or not it's going to be a category 1 or 2 or 3, but it's forecast to be a hurricane. And there will be some storm surge along the Texas coast here. Now, I want to show you this new product by the Hurricane Center. They have a new product about the storm surge and rainfall potential and flash flooding potential here. Now, you can see the Texas coastline. It kind of goes jaggedly from kind of a southwest to northeast orientation here. And it's possible that the storm could bring a slight, at least 15% risk of flash flooding for all these areas. So Houston and the Bay Area need to pay special attention to this on Saturday afternoon, because the turn to the north, depending on how far it turns to the north and then to the northeast like that, it could bring flooding rains to the area, if not the strong winds. Yes, I'm coming. Okay, yes. Yes, I'm coming in one moment. I'm coming. Okay. So most of the rain and the winds I forecast to be west. Houston will be on the west side of the storm, basically. So they'll be on the more weaker side. The eastern side was going to be over here, somewhere between Lake Charles and Cameron, Louisiana, is where it might potentially make landfall. The cone has been shifting east and further northeast because the high pressure is weakening here. This big Bermuda high here, Bermuda Azores high, as well as the high pressure over the Americas, Southeast Americas, has been weakening here. And this is going to allow a little window for Beryl to turn north into either the Louisiana coastline or northern Texas coastline east of the Houston area. Right now, the cone is continuing to show, I'm going to go back to the cone to show you guys, it's continuing to show the middle Texas coastline, so like Victoria, Port Lavaca, Corpus Christi area being the center focus, but you can see in the last few hours the cone is continuing to shift north and northeast to include Houston, Galveston, League City, Beaumont, Lake Charles, Cameron, Louisiana. So it's going to continue to shift east, more so on Saturday. So Saturday afternoon, that's going to be the pivoting point, because the high pressure is already weakening and it's moving east. Right now, what's causing the cone to continue to shift like this is the high pressure is moving back west and then east, retreating further east and going back, playing in the river and on the bank. And so as it does that, as it oscillates between west and east like this and that causes the cone to shift west and east like that, and that causes Beryl, which will be a minimal hurricane, possibly sometime Saturday afternoon, or late Saturday afternoon, with winds of 75 miles an hour. As it re-intensifies later on in the afternoon of Saturday, it's going to take that turn from northwest to north and then to northeast into a landfall like that. And that's why I tend to take the right side of this cone, because I believe that the turn will be more pronounced. Now, the movement is supposed to slow down too, but it's not going to be a dramatic slowdown, but it will be a slowdown to around 8 to 10 miles an hour, maybe 12 miles an hour if we're lucky. If we lose all steering currents, then all bets are off coast to the coast. Obviously, the waters is warm coast to the coast. The waters out here are 84 degrees. It's not terribly warm. It's not like 90, but coast to the Texas coast here, the waters is at 90 degrees here in the southern Texas coast here. So if it can re-intensify to possibly up to a minimal category 3, like a 111, 115 mile an hour storm, if conditions are favorable and if the storm hugs the coast like it did Jamaica's coast, where the core of the storm stayed offshore. But this is a much different animal of a storm. As you can see now, it's the wind field has shrunk completely down to 105 miles worth of tropical storm force wind, and it's unclear if the storm redevelops as a hurricane, which is forecast to do, by the way. If there's a big eye, if it develops a big eye and a bigger wind field, which is almost certain to happen, how much of the western side of this storm is going to be convective? It's going to be repaired after it reemerges in the Gulf of Mexico, which is starting to do now. And it's also unclear the depth of the waters, the upwelling, that because remember we had Chris that came through here, Tropical Storm Chris that came through southern Mexico. So it's unclear if there's cool pockets, cool eddies of water there that could also inhibit it. But it has warm water going for it. It has shear going against it, and it also has time. There's only about maybe 450 to 500 miles worth of real estate from along the Texas coast, from Brownsville up to Houston and Beaumont and Lake Charles, Louisiana, that it has to work with before it has to make an eventual landfall. Now, another thing I should mention to you too as well, as this timeline is going to be forecast to change, because there's already know that the system is going to be slowing down here. So Tropical Storm Beryl is going to be slowing down sometime between Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon, as it begins to make that turn from the northwest to the north, and then eventually back to the northeast to make that landfall. So it's going to come in at a very odd angle, but that's why storm surge warnings is going to be posted later on for 3 to 5 foot of water rise between Houston and Victoria and Corpus Christi and Port Lavaca and all those points down there, South Padre Island. But the most of the storm surge is going to be to the right, of course, and to the right of the center, and just to the immediate right of one and southeast of where the center comes into play. And so that's what's going to be the thing that's going to get it. Now, Tropical Storm Beryl spurs top Mexican beaches at the Furious Caribbean track. This is from Reuters News. And so just like Jamaica, Tropical Storm Beryl spurs top Mexican beaches. It came in through, just north of Tulum, Mexico, and it came in around, wind speeds came in around 70 miles an hour, and there was some damage, yes, but it wasn't, they lost power, but it wasn't anything that the top tourist destinations in Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula, the White Sand Beaches and the Mayan ruins are, they were largely spared, thank God, from the worst damages that this system could have brought. Had it came in as a Cat 3 or 4, it was briefly a Cat 3 last night before coming into Yucatan as a Cat 2 and quickly weakening to a Cat 1, and now a tropical storm here, as you can see. You see a heavy convection on the north side, way up the north side of the core, and that can be indicative, maybe once the storm moves up in that area, of more, intense strengthening back to a hurricane. But it's going to take at least a day or two, probably to Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, for the system to get itself back together, as it's fighting dry air entrainment and wind shear, and it has fought off that well in the past, as we know. But this is a different animal now that it's in the Gulf of Mexico. So the areas to be concerned here, that I would be concerned about, is obviously South Texas here, with the hurricane watches in effect. But I'm really looking now towards the area between Houston and this second secondary bay here. I think it's Victoria or Port Lavaca, in between Houston and Port Lavaca, and that's where I would be looking for the most surge to be coming in at if the system comes in with this pattern more to the right. Now, if it comes in between, then obviously Houston and the Galveston Bay area will feel more effects of that. Tropical storm hurricane effects will be coming into the Houston area and all surrounding areas to the north and to the east. Now, if the system misses altogether and it goes northwest, then north, and then northeast, then that means that and slows down. That means that the Louisiana area coastline would be feeling the impacts, and less so much in Texas. That means that places like Beaumont and Houston won't feel that many impacts. They'll be on the western side of this storm. Now, the blessing is right now is that it's a smaller storm right now, but this is forecast to change, obviously, because once it reorganizes itself and gets that core again as a hurricane and the eye forms, you could have a 40 mile wide eye, a big system with a huge field of tropical storm force winds, and maybe only 10 to 15 miles of hurricane force winds, which that could also be a scenario too. And it could be a category 2 or 3 again, possibly a category 2, I believe, coming into either the Louisiana coastline or just on the border between Texas and Louisiana as it makes that final turn to the northeast, following the high pressure that's weakening and kind of oscillating back and forth to the west and to the east like that, bouncing back and forth. So it just depends on the timing, but this track here is going to be pushed back some. So it looks more and more like the landfall right now is going to be pushed back. It's been pushed back on the couple of latest advisories here. So if there is a potential landfall, it's going to be pushed back to probably sometime Tuesday morning or late Tuesday morning into the evening, Tuesday afternoon, basically, that's what I'm trying to say. So, because this is going to slow down now, depending on what it does on Saturday. But I believe this track here is going to be slowing down tremendously here. As the high pressure weakens, the wind shear gets a hold of it, and the steering currents kind of loosen up here, and it begins to try to make these turns to the northwest, north, and then northeast like that. So, because of that, the timeline is going to be pushed back some. But Texas, you should be obviously making preparations. Anybody from Houston back to Port Lavaca, Victoria, Corpus Christi, and up through Lake Charles and Cameron, Louisiana, on the coast right here, you need to be prepared for tropical storm conditions affecting your area, by possibly what the wind field is now, possibly by Monday afternoon is what we're looking at there. But the landfall is going to be pushed back. Like I said, this timeline is going to be pushed back till sometime Tuesday morning to Tuesday afternoon for an actual landfall. Could even be pushed back further to Wednesday morning, but it depends on how fast this thing moves. I don't think it's going to move that fast. You could be looking at a landfall. It's very tricky, but you could be looking at a landfall, say Tuesday afternoon. Possibly, and the system will be moving very slow. Unfortunately, this is going to be a huge rainmaker for whoever gets it, just because the system is going to be moving like northwest or northeast at like 5 or 6, 7 miles an hour. So that's the problem that we're going to face when it does come ashore. And so the key points is that the system is weakening tonight. It will continue to weaken, and then it will re-strengthen sometime Saturday afternoon, going into Saturday night. Into a hurricane category 1, and then from there it's anybody's guess as how far in the intensity scale it will go, because so far the warm water temperatures have been warming up, so it's not out of the question that it can come back to a major hurricane, but it'll just be it'll be a tight system, meaning that it'll be a small compact system, a major hurricane, or it'll be a spread out system. And my bet is that it's going to be a spread out system with a larger wind field and a large eye. When the eye does reform in this hurricane, whenever it becomes a hurricane, Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, what you're going to have is you're going to have a big nautical eye, like 30 nautical mile wide eye, surrounded by a tropical storm wind field of up to 200 miles, and then a small hurricane force winds in there, very small core, maybe another 15 miles, 20 mile, if that, hurricane force winds that's going to be contained in it. But right now it's pulling away. As you can see, it's pulling north here. It's lost its core, but the center of it is fixed here just above Merida and the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And I'm happy to report that Mexico and Tulum was spared the heavy damage. There was trees down and power outages and stuff like that, and gas station tops blown off and stuff. That we expected that, but the ruins and the Mayan ruins and the popular tourist destinations were spared for the system, just as Jamaica was spared and Cayman was spared. So blessings on those three countries as it pulls away. Now we expect the same blessings, hopefully, as it pulls away and affects the U.S. coastline here. Like I said, the models are showing a landfall in either Corpus Christi, Texas, or somewhere to the east of there, like Victoria. I fully expect this model, and this is just my opinion. I'm not going to, I'm agreeing with the Hurricane Center, but this is my opinion. I expect them to shift this cone further to the east and northeast as the system pulls away from the Yucatan and begins to transition from northwest to north, and then finally to the northeast like that. So this will put the landfall east of the Houston metro area, and we will know that you'll be out of the woods possibly by Sunday morning, early, a little bit after Sunday, a little bit after noon or so. Sunday afternoon, you should know you're out of the woods. But in any event, Houston, you should prepare, because you still would be on that western side, which still can produce some tornadoes as the feeder bands rotate around. You still will be impacted by this. And Houston floods, if we get 6 or 7 inches or 4 inches of rain, you guys start having problems down there, all the way up the loop and all the way north, from the Woodlands all the way down to Bay City, Lake City, Baytown, 5th Ward, 3rd Ward, so the deal with that. But I'm just saying that that's possibility. And then the landfall is going to be pushed back, ladies and gentlemen, probably pushed back to a Tuesday afternoon landfall as the system slows down, because it could possibly make, with the high pressure weakening, this thing could possibly make 3 turns, because it's got to go northwest first right now, right? And then it's got to go north like that, and then it's got to go northeast. Pull northeast, either pulled up by a front, swept through. Usually these systems get pulled up or swept out by a front, or just by the nature of the high pressure itself. It's oscillating, because the high pressure itself, the steering currents right now, is oscillating west and east like that. It's weakening and moving to the east, the Bermuda High, and then it's coming back over a little bit more towards the west. And Beryl is feeling that, because Beryl is a weaker system right now. So it's at the whims of the least resistance, the path of least resistance, like water. Water takes the path of least resistance. Hurricanes tend to do that too. And so we have it here. And so this is the high pressure here. As it weakens, as it strengthens, Beryl is going to come in a little more, go away a little more, come in a little more, go away a little more. And that's what makes it so tricky to forecast that landfall. But I believe in about, say, Tuesday afternoon, I believe that landfall is going to be over towards Beaumont, Lake Charles, Cameron, Louisiana, and just to the east of there, and those marshes there, it's going to come in, and then that'll put Houston and surrounding communities to the west Texas in that western side of this system, however big it is, and that would mean that you guys will have tropical storm conditions throughout the day. And with a few hurricane force gusts, but mostly it's going to be tropical storm rains, tropical storm conditions, and that's going to be better for you. But like I said, the flooding is going to be a problem all up and down this part here, from Texarkana, Arkatex, back up towards Shreveport. All that's going to be flooding once the system finally comes inland, sometime Tuesday afternoon or late Tuesday night. That's going to be the problem. And so the Weather Center, the National Hurricane Center has issued the new product here, the flash flooding potential. Right now it's saying just slight 15%, and this includes all the way up the Waco, Shreveport, like I was saying. So this includes a good chunk. It's only at slight right now, but like I said, as the cone gets adjusted further east, past Houston and Lake Charles and all of that, as the system pulls north and then northeast at a slow pace. If this thing is only going I predict this thing is only going to be making landfall at northeast at let's say between 5 and 8 miles an hour. We're going to have a lot of flooding rains here, all in this Arkatex region here, east of Houston. Now, Houston's going to get some rain too in tropical storm conditions, but it's mainly going to be east of you guys, as you guys are going to be on the western side of this loop right here, which is the weaker side, the degraded side. And the storm is set to expand. The wind field is set to expand. Not today, not tomorrow, but sometime on late Saturday night and the Sunday, you'll see the system expand, and you'll see an eye that's either going to be formed, a big eye, and it's going to expand like a donut eye, and it's just going to have a little bit of hurricane winds, maybe 10 or 15 miles out from the center, and the rest of this thing is going to be a tropical storm condition. That's one scenario that can happen with this thing. The other scenario is that it rapidly re-intensifies to a Category 3 hurricane, right? And then it comes into what I was saying. It comes into Lake Charles and that area, Beaumont again, and Cameron. That's the second scenario, and it slows down, prompting heavy rain and flooding and all of this area right here, the Architect area, including Houston. That's the second scenario. And so we have two scenarios. The first scenario is it emerges from the Yucatan, which is doing now. It keeps at the same speed, say about west northwest at 10 or 12 miles an hour, right, from 15, right, and then it slows down as it feels the weakening high, and then it turns north somewhere between Sunday afternoon. It turns north. It begins north, and then it slows down further, north at 8 or whatever, 7, and then it makes that final push northeast, and that'll put it somewhere between Lake Charles and whatever's in central Louisiana that's there, and it'll come in ashore there, and that'll put Houston, Beaumont on that west side, all that rain. Now, depending on how the wind shear is, I want to stress this enough. Depending on how the wind shear is shearing this thing, if it relaxes or not, will tell you where the convective thunderstorms are. If it's east side loaded, then that means that, of course, most of the heavy rain will be confined to the border of Texas and Louisiana and points northeastward. Now, if it's west side loaded or northwest loaded, then that means that folks like Houston, the Woodlands, and all this area here basically will be getting a bunch of rain, possibly up to 10 inches. And then up in there where the center comes in the shore and all that, they'll be getting over 10 inches, 12 over a foot probably, between Lake Charles, Cameron, all these middle parishes here in Louisiana and stuff like that. So that's what's going on right now. I just wanted to bring you the update here for this, what's going on with Tropical Storm Beryl as we see it right now. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I thank you for listening and for joining, and I'll see you on the next episode where we're going to get the next update at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and that's when they're going to get the next update, and it should be either still a tropical storm. They're going to hold it at a tropical storm as the winds are only at 65 miles an hour, but they'll probably increase the winds to 70 miles an hour because it's over open water over open water, and then it won't become a hurricane again, I believe, until this coming Saturday morning at either the 8 a.m. advisory or the 11 a.m. advisory. It'll be re-intensified into a minimal Category 1 hurricane, and then from there, it's going to continue to intensify up to, Category 2 or possibly Category 3, but that's far off. That's a little far off because landfall is going to be pushed back till sometime Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, because the system is forecast to slow down here, and then because it's got to make two turns. It's got to go north and then northeast into somewhere over here in central Louisiana, and that puts Texas on the western side, and that means less surge for you guys, but you still will get elevated surge, 3 to 5 feet, but that would put all the surge into Louisiana on that right front quadrant there, whatever strength the hurricane is. I don't know right now. I'm keeping it at a borderline Cat 2, Cat 3 coming in, but we all know that rapid intensification can happen like that. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But the cone is shifting east and northeast, so that means that the high is weakening, and it will continue to weaken, and it will steer this thing first northwest, then north, and then northeast, somewhere into the central Louisiana coast, all the way back toward the Houston Beaumont area, and that's where the landfall is going to be. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more later on this weekend once we get more plans finalized here. So be blessed, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon here. Bye-bye.